Welcome to Pragmatic Talks, a podcast and video series where we discuss startups, contemporary digital product development, modern technologies, and product management. I am Wiktor Wolnowski, a CEO of Pragmatic Coders, the first choice software development partners for startup founders. In today's episode, I invited Michał Kania, one of our best product owners. Today we are going to discuss the topic essential for any startup, the product and product management. We'll start with the basics by explaining the difference between product and project management. Then we'll dive deeper to explore how hiring a good product manager could help your business thrive. The greatest waste of money and waste of time in software development, especially in startups, usually came from lack of product management or weak product management in the startup environment. Of course, there are many reasons why startups are probably not doing it in the best way possible. We'll try to discuss it today, and we'll focus more on how to do this right instead of all of the mistakes that you can make when you're doing the product management. I'm going to start, or we are going to start from the basics. Like let's discuss. Let's try to define what is the product, and especially how does it differ from project.
Maybe before we start, we can make clear for everyone that most of the startup fails, because then it will be easier to understand what we want to say later, and it will be easier to understand why what we are saying is important.
So like more than 90% of startups fail.
Yeah. So biggest part of the code of the software that we are delivering is going to trash. A lot of effort is a waste. So that's why that topic is important, and that's why we need to understand deeply the difference between product and project. So let's start from the project. Project has, as in the definition you can find, time, budget, and scope. All of that are fixed. So you spend time to describe deeply what you want to deliver, how much money you need for that, and how much time you need for that. It's super clear that there is end of the project. In the product, there is no end. So product can fail, and that's the end of the product. Project is something different.
Yeah, I usually say that the difference between the product and project is that, as you mentioned, that project is fixed in time, especially. Sometimes the scope changes, and according to the PMI and other management approaches, it can change. There are some rules that could change. But usually the time or budget, or both time and budget, are fixed. There is a fourth dimension that usually is not mentioned, which is quality. But this is like a side topic, not for today. But comparing to that, the product is something that, as you said, doesn't have any end. It may fail at some point, and that will be the end of the product, or it might be replaced by another product, designed, created by the same company. I think that you already mentioned one very important thing, that we can create a lot of software that nobody will use because like startups failing. Even the startups that didn't fail, they also create a lot of software, a lot of code that is not used. It just came to my mind that when we are talking about physical products, like producing glasses or cups or whatever, or this table, we can easily see if we do something that is unneeded, nobody is using, or something. It's very transparent. When we are talking about code and about software, it's not so transparent. It's very difficult to notice, especially for people who are not developers, and especially if you don't have any metrics that measure the code usage, you cannot actually define if the things that you are delivering are used or not.
My problem with that is that it's quite easy to measure.
Mm-hmm.
But most companies, most of the startup doesn't measure it. So there are good metrics, like I know Google measure it, I know Microsoft measure it. How many functionalities, how many different apps that Google provides are used? The percentage of it is not too high. That's interesting. And we know that they have a lot of money, they have a lot of budget for research, for that discovery processes, but still big part of their ideas that are developed are not used.
From the other perspective, like product thinking instead of the project thinking or project mindset, product thinking is more focused on the long-term game. Like it's more strategic. Even if you have a lot of budget, you are thinking not about spending all of your budget because you have a project and you want to have a budget so you can spend this budget. You are thinking about going to the production fast, validating your hypothesis, collecting the feedback, improving your product, and constantly improving because there are other companies, there are competitors on the market who are most probably working on pretty similar products and want to replace you. So you're all the time challenged and you need to respond to the market changes.
I need to interrupt, sorry. I see as a risk if you have too big budget. Because then you are not hungry, you are not looking for best options, you are not looking for how to be better, more efficient, and you will produce a lot of waste.
Yeah. So budget is a problem.
Not limited budget is a problem. It's easier to make that mistake that you will think, I'm safe, I'm secure, we can deliver whole year something. If you have limited budget, you need to be smarter. And then you can be more creative, and then you can be more efficient. You are focused more.
One of the things that companies are doing very often, are making, is that they are not measuring budget, and they are not measuring the progress of spending money on delivering something. So it's very often that when you are closer to the deadline to the moment that your budget is not so big anymore, you spend a lot of money, then you realize that, oh my God, we haven't delivered anything with value, and we are in trouble right now. Actually, this is something that some of our clients came to us at this point and started the cooperation with us, and we actually very often start in this kind of situation. So
yeah, and what happened next?
And next, what we are usually talking with these clients is that we tell them that, okay, we need to start with assigning a product manager to actually learn what's wrong and what's the problem and what are the possibilities. And funny thing is that most of those people are saying that they don't need it.
It's happy path if you are able to find good product manager there or establish product management there. But if not, what I observe usually is as a result, they will see that budget looks that we have limited budget. So we have scope to deliver, we have time fixed. So we need to decrease quality. And they try to deliver the same scope with limited budget and the quality decrease. And again, maybe someone will not use it because the quality is so poor. That's the pattern that I see.
Yeah, and then later on it occurs that adding new features, changing something, etc., is even more difficult and more costly. Yeah. So actually the budget that was already limited is, well, way not enough to actually deliver the end goal.
Yeah.
I think that we already have been talking about old way of doing stuff, because in the modern product development it works pretty different. You are not doing a 1 year long project, but usually you are iterating and delivering the product to the production many times on the way. So you have working product almost all the time, not at the end of the budget or timeline. Correct?
It should be correct.
Okay.
But let's start from the frameworks. Like we have Scrum for, I don't know, 20 years or more.
Oh,
I think, yeah. And there is written that every sprint we should deliver something that is shippable.
At least once per sprint. Yeah, deliver. Yep.
How many companies doing that?
Actually, not so many. But any company that is using Scrum and doing it right, they are doing this. In our company, almost all of our teams are doing that. Of course, some products are not released to production and to the end users, but they are potentially shippable, as you call it.
Yeah, and I agree that in that company it's true. I observe many times in many companies that I thinking that they're using Scrum, they think they are delivering something. It's not true, so it's not a Scrum. And I think that on the market, kind of average is not the Scrum. It's not the delivering anything important to the market. So then there is no Scrum, no Agile, no product management in a proper way.
By the way, one of our previous episodes, we discussed what is the Scrum and how startups and how startups can or even should use Scrum for their product management. Don't forget to check this episode out. So getting back to the product and product management. So we already have an idea of how the product is different from project. What the product management is about? What's the main difference between the project manager and product manager and their responsibilities, their goals?
Okay. Project has end. It's clear timeline. Product not. So my focus as a product manager is to focus how we can deliver more value with less budget as fast as possible. So kind of efficiency. We have a kind of vision of kind of a description of our job. My job is to maximize product market fit and ultimately create as big revenue as it's possible. So that's my job. That's my job as a product manager. And it's completely different than project manager, because as a project manager, you need to deliver that project with that budget, with that scope.
Project sometimes has goal. So project manager could be responsible for also delivering the project goal, but at the end of the day, even if the project is delivered and the goal is not achieved, then no one should blame the project manager because the project was wrong from the very first day. In terms of the product management, it sounds different.
Yeah, I was project manager before, and it's super frustrating when you create best description for the project, you get approval for that from management board, let's guess, and then you start delivering it, and then you learn something, and you know that what you described before is not correct, and there is two options. You will deliver that thing that you promised to deliver, and everything will be good, everyone will be happy, but you are not happy because you know that it's not the best thing that you want to deliver or the clients need. Or the other option is you need to spend time, effort, and a lot of waste, create a lot of waste to change your previous decision, to convince the management board that you made wrong decision and we need to adapt.
So I also notice from what you are saying that there is a difference between the level of responsibility and also the level of autonomy between the project manager and product manager.
Yeah, because as a project manager, your responsibility is on delivery. Product manager, your responsibility is on market fit and revenue. So strategy is different.
So I think that we are coming to this point where we need to discuss the difference between the output and outcome.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Patton's idea, brilliant video. You can find it on YouTube or somewhere. Jeff Patton, output versus outcome, to learn about it more. But let's discuss it.
Yeah. So output is what we are delivering. You can see. So output is an application. Output is a feature, but outcome is a change of users' behavior. So with that feature, with that functionality, with that application, I can do something faster, easier, more effective, and we can measure the effectiveness of that user.
So product management is focused more on the outcome, when project management should be focused on the outcome, but it's much easier to fall into the trap of output and delivering mostly output.
I would rephrase it a bit. Project management is about delivering stuff, and product management is about delivering change over the world. So what I want to say, your users will do it. They will be more happy because they can do it faster, easier, and that user's behavior change.
Whatever the it is.
Yeah.
The it that your product is solving. Okay, so of course there are like people are saying that of course you can build a product by performing projects on the way. Are there any traps there, any issues with this kind of approach?
as I said before, to create a project, you need to describe it. That description should be clear enough for everyone to make decision that if we want to go to that direction. The description should be clear enough so we can estimate it clearly, because someone needs to decide if we want to pay for that or not. And the trap is it's not easy to learn in that structure of development, because whenever you learn something, you need to explain those people that you convinced before that you have best idea how to deliver it, that you are wrong. It's difficult for every human to convince another person that I was wrong yesterday or month ago, but now I have better idea.
So trust me.
Yeah, trust me again.
Trust me, I'm project manager.
Yeah, trust me, I'm project manager. That's good. And from the beginning, when you are product manager, you need to build a trust with the management of the company, someone that you are working for, that you can learn faster. It's about learning. It's not about delivering stuff. It's about learning. When I was young project manager, I asked my investor how to become better, and he told me the story that he is hiring not the best qualified managers, the most experienced, but those that are learning faster. And that mindset stayed with me, because it's always about learning, how we can learn faster so we can be more efficient.
If you could name maybe a few or maybe one, the most important thing in product management. So what is the most important for product manager or in the product manager role?
Okay, that's a difficult question, because if I need to pick one, it's communication. But let me explain. I make a research that I grab a lot of job offers for head of products, product managers from the internet. I try to categorize all responsibilities, all tech skills to different categories. And the outcome from that research is 37% of responsibilities is about strategy. 21% is about leadership, and 17% is about the delivery. When you think about strategy, you need to be able to grab all information together and be creative. But then you need to act as a leader to keep focus for whole organization on what you decide and on learning. And then you need to spend your time on delivery to be able to convince those people to deliver the right things in the right way. So everything here is about communication, and only some part is about analytic skills, kind of smart ideas.
So what tools product managers use for communication or for increasing the communication?
Yeah.
Or what tools do you use for that?
Yeah, when you read most of books that are shared in our community, is about communication. It's about visualization of that what we learned or that what we think. Because let's guess, you mentioned about Jeff Patton user story mapping. It's really good, and it's a visual tool to describe ideas, what we want to deliver. It's visual tool to discuss about kind of strategy, what outcomes we want to produce, and then what output we need to deliver to get that outcome. And you can imagine, I don't know, impact mapping, event storming, it's the same.
Every tools or communication tools, user stories or the communication tools.
Yeah.
And many more.
Yeah.
Go on all this.
Every tool like that is about communication, and you can work on your own, so you can be more creative, I believe, in visual way. And at the same time, you can communicate better.
So are there any differences between the tools or methods that product managers should use at the beginning of the product development and later on? Like, how do you start product development, for example?
From the goal.
From the goal.
Yeah.
The goal.
So you need to define or understand what you want to achieve, what kind of human behavior change. And then you need to create kind of strategy how you want to do it. And Jeff Patton user story mapping is really good tool to do that. Usually when I start working on some product, I'm starting with something like that. So kind of user story map to understand what, how, and what for we want to achieve it. And then it's super easy to see the kind of step on the roadmaps because of limited budget, because of other external topics. We need to, let's guess, convince investors to get more money to deliver it. So we need to deliver something that we will be able to convince them. So, for example, sometimes we need to deliver kind of mockups before we start delivering the software, because on the mockups we can find real users that will to use it. And then with that information, with that potential clients, we can go to first investors and look for some money to start delivering any software.
So very early stage ideation.
Yeah.
We can start with first defining the product goal and defining the features that should be in the first version. Then we can design a mockup, a clickable mockup for that, and then we can test this mockup with potential real users. And based on that test, we can already go to investors and convince them to invest into the product.
Yes, but what is missing, what you said, using user story mapping, it's super easy to find out things that we don't want to deliver. It's one of the visual tools that I use on the workshop is, I like workshop in a physical way with sticky notes. I use separate color for card that we try to cover user story that is not needed now because we can do it manually, because in that stage of the application user don't need it, or other topics. So you can imagine if you want to start any application and you can think about kind of back office for that, usually you can cover with that color, so you don't want to deliver them in the first few stages. It's not important because you don't have enough users to do it. So it will be waste instead of delivering something that is important for the users.
So to make it simple, like one of the job of product owner is to cut the scope or postpone some things that don't need to be done at first. So at the end of the day, we can deliver the product to the market faster. So time to market is one of the measures that we should observe when we are talking about product management. Is it correct?
Yes, but when I think about my productivity, my value that I'm delivering to the product is focus on the things that are important. So I can measure it, how many user story I move to the trash or for later. That long later, let's call it like that. Never ever in the future. Yeah, I literally measure it. On the workshop, it's super clear. When you have a lot of cards on the wall, and I organize many workshops that after the workshop, we see that we need to deliver only few user stories to check if the idea is correct. So before the meeting, we thought that we need to deliver, I guess, 20, 30 big user stories to create a product. And then we discovered that only 3 of them are important. Everything else can be done later.
Yeah, so I just recall that like many of our potential clients came to us and asking for the estimates for their project. And so what we often do, we offer them to do the scoping workshop or product kickoff workshop with us, just to do what you described. And very often I remember the stories that they came with set of requirements, and you or other of our product managers were able to decrease the scope by even 90%. So the question about the price, cost estimate or whatever was totally irrelevant if we find a way to go to production for the 10% of whatever the price would be, because we decreased the scope by 90%. And by that we could deliver 10% of functionality that delivers way more value than the 10%. Usually it's sometimes like a Pareto, 80% of value. What's the most important? Delivering that scope to production usually bring new ideas, bring feedback from the market. So founders, other shareholders could make a better informed decision instead of guessing what users will like, what users will use. They can make a better informed decision on what is actually needed and what should be done next instead of just guessing.
I have problem with what you said because it's true. That's my problem. Literally, it's about 90% of waste in the previous scope. That's usual. But my problem is that
the world is working that way.
Yeah. So usually when I discussing with the client, and he tells me that, okay, we can do it that way, but I can go to another software company, software house, and they will deliver it for sure. And that's the problem. We are generating more unused code in our world, and I don't like it. It makes no sense.
That's a problem with the market. Like most of the software delivery companies, even our business model is based on the hourly basis. So the more hours we will work, the more hours we'll charge to the customer, the more money we will earn. But it's not the point, because our mission is to play the long-term game and build the partnership relations with clients, not the short-term delivering projects.
Yeah, it's a lot of waste. And if you are looking for how to deliver more, you need to cut the scope. Because you don't want to, let's back to outcome and output, you don't want to deliver as much code as you think you need. You want to deliver outcome, and that outcome will produce for you impact, so kind of revenue.
There are like a few different types of clients who we spoke to. Like some of them are our startup founders. Some of them already have a budget, like a big budget. Maybe we can talk about if it's possible to have too big budget, just in a moment. But there are also clients who have very limited budget. And actually, from my experience, those are the best clients, especially those who have limited budget but have this capability to actually increase this budget. I mean, raising new funding rounds or finding investors and etc. Those are the clients that I would say that we love, because with them we usually work on the products for a very, very long time, despite the budget is very limited. And by limited, I mean like $100,000 or something like this, or even a little bit less.
Yeah, because that forces you to be smart.
Yeah.
And then if you have limited budget, the creative work starts. You need to think. You need to be smarter than others, because if you can think about your startup as you have best idea, every startupper has best idea, why Google didn't deliver it? What they don't have, that you have it.
It's limited budget.
It's creativity, it's ability to learn, and focus. And focus, yeah. So there is, because of that lack of focus, because we have too much budget, we are delivering too many things. So usually then you realize that too many things, you need to have more developers to maintain it. You need to have more product managers to focus on delivering, and still doesn't bring any or too less revenue because there is no focus.
Yeah, so for example, when I hear from our clients that they have a huge budget and the deadline is a year from now, I know that it will be a failure. Like 90% of time, that will be the failure. So it's a way you shouldn't build software product, because it's so easy to add a waste to software that without any limitation, any borders, you will most probably add this waste to the product and waste a lot of money, bury a lot of money on things that won't be used at all. Okay, so let's imagine the situation that we have a team, the software development, product development team, that has a product owner that is not a very good product owner, product manager that is not very good, that is missing some competencies of product management competencies. and we have a team without any product manager at all. Which one do you think is could be better team, and which approach will be better? Like the team with product manager who is not a good product manager, or the team without any product manager?
Both situations are quite difficult or not correct, but in the first situation, you have weak product manager, and maybe you don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you think you are doing it right way, because it's possible and it's okay if you don't know how to measure his productivity. From another hand, if you don't have any product manager, it will be clear for you that something is missing. So it will be easier to fix that issue that you have in your organization. Your developers, if they are good, they will ask right questions. You will be able to clearly see that you don't have answers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have answers, you see the issue and then you can fix it. Mm-hmm. So I think if I would choose, I would choose lack of product management at all.
Mm-hmm. So it will be more transparent. So you can actually, you cannot, at this point, you cannot pretend that you are doing product management. You can simply say, okay, we have a problem because we don't have product management and we need to set it up.
Yeah. So for example, developers will came to you and you will realize that you cannot ask the question why we are delivering that feature, what for. And if you don't have exact answer, what for, what's the goal, you can observe that there is lack of product management in your company.
How would you respond? I've met a lot of founders who are saying that they are the one who are doing product management job, and they are CEO, like a solopreneur, so there are no other people in the company, so that they have like a lot of responsibilities, and then they focus on product management. They are saying that they will do this job. What would you recommend to them? I do have an answer, but I want.
Yeah, it looks like it is a smart decision, because you, as a startup, you don't have too much money, so you need to be smart. You need to deliver a lot of different things. So instead of one product manager, you can hire one developer.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's true. So then you can cut more trees. Let's use that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
But you are not sure that you are cutting the right trees. Another problem with that is that because you are focusing on product management, so strategy, leadership, and delivery, you are not focusing on your organization. Mm-hmm. Your organization needs to grow. Your job as a CEO is to looking for investors, for more resources, so we can grow faster. It's impossible, from my experience, to do it in one head. It's too much work.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. That at the end of the day, the CEO who is trying to do product management has no time to be a CEO, and that's one of the reasons why often such companies fail.
I can imagine a situation that we have CEO, product manager, and no developers, and we are still able to deliver something that is important to the market,
which is not so obvious.
Yeah, but opposite way, that we have CEO, developers without product management, it's close to impossible, because someone we need to think about that, what we are working on. And if you are a developer, it's hard to think that way. As a developer, you think about solutions. As a product manager, you are thinking about problems.
As a CEO, you have thousands of brilliant ideas that you want to bring to life, and no one is stopping you if you don't have product manager.
Yeah.
Who is focused on actually delivering to the production as fast as possible and cutting the scope. So I think that this is the greatest value of good product manager in a startup team. But like from what I heard like many times, and even I remember that you told this story as well some time ago, that from the CEO perspective, or from the founder perspective who has this limited budget, like looking at the situation and, for example, hiring a team of 3 developers and 1 product manager instead of 4 developers, from career, like a delivery perspective doesn't make any sense, because 4 developers would definitely deliver more code.
I agree.
Like 25% more code than 3 developers and product manager who is not coding. So what's your response on that?
The question is, if your clients pay you for code. So
I mean the users.
The users, yes. If your users are paying you because you have a lot of lines of the code, then
Usually not.
Usually not.
Usually they don't care.
Usually they don't care. That's the truth. Usually they don't care. They don't care about many different things, about processes, about many different things. They care about only about what they get from that product. So from the outcome. As Jeff Patton said in his book, in his stories, you need to maximize outcome and minimize output. Because then you can be more focused, then you can deliver the right things.
We already discussed what's the value of product manager in a startup. I believe we answered the question why it's important for startup founders to think about hiring product manager instead of doing the product management on their own. Like many startups, founders, managers, whatever, they are talking about product manager. And I believe that they are mostly talking about it. Not everyone, or not many of them are doing it right. It's like a product management for startups is like a teenager's sex. Like everyone is talking about it. Some of them are using that, and only a few have a real experience in that. So this comparison is maybe not very good, but sometimes for me, at least from my perspective, it looks like that startups are talking about product management, but then when we dive deeper, when we actually go on board, we see how they do that. It occurs that what they are doing is some kind of management, which is definitely not a product management. How to hire a good product manager for startup? That's the real question, because especially founders who are not experienced in product management may find it difficult to find a right person to do the product management for them.
Before I answer that question, let's go to the digression that you made. I make a research about the job offers to understand if the market understands who is product manager, who is head of product. And from the job offers, understanding is correct. But then if you join to basically any company or most of the company, kind of average company, the focus is on delivery, usually only on the delivery. And that's wrong. That's against the job offers that those companies create. There is understanding, but they are not using that knowledge that they have. That's the problem.
Or maybe different people are writing the job offers than those who are later on managing those people who are hired, especially in corporates.
Yes, it could be the case, but if you are CEO and want to hire someone, I guess in bigger companies, someone will prepare a job offer for you, but then you will approve it.
Yeah.
But after that, you expect something different. And on the job offers, strategy and leadership, and then delivery, in reality is the delivery.
And maybe you'll be allowed to talk about strategy. Yeah. Or consult the strategy.
Yeah. That's the problem.
Okay, so that's the problem with the market, with the way how organizations, how startups and bigger companies are perceiving the job of product owner or product manager. Let's focus on hiring product managers. So how to hire great product manager for start?
It's super difficult because it's not about knowledge. It's less about tools. It's about mindset. So let's back to that story that I told you when I asked investors. He's hiring managers that are learning faster. Because you want to deliver something that isn't exist on the market. So you need to learn faster, because you cannot, if you want to create a grocery shop, you can learn from books how to do it. You can observe
or just ask someone who already open it.
Yeah. If I want to hire good product manager, I will ask him, that's important, how to measure good product management.
Okay.
And depend on the response, then I can make the decision.
Okay. So how to measure a good product manager?
That's difficult. That's why I'm asking that question.
Uh-huh.
And as I told you, my vision is to create product market fit as fast as possible and then ultimately focus on revenue. So how to measure good product manager? Revenue with product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with those metrics, you need to wait too long
Mm-hmm.
to measure it. So to measure increasing revenue, you need to wait months.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to have that decision quite fast, because if you make mistake, you will probably lose a lot of money. So we can measure learning, we can measure time to market, time to learn. That's two important metrics. And we can measure how efficient that product manager is. So as I'm measuring quality of the workshop, how much scope I can cut to deliver the same outcome.
So cutting the scope is one of the metrics. You mentioned measure learning. What do you mean by that?
Let's use example. As a product manager, you make a lot of decisions, like let's do that feature instead of that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you decide to make that feature, and if your time to learn or time to market it's short, let's guess 1 month. So after 1 month, you have it on the production.
Mm-hmm.
After another month, you can measure if your expectation before you make decision, like your expectation was after 1 month of being on the production, let's guess 1,000 of users will use it.
Mm-hmm.
You can measure it after 2 months. Mm-hmm. If your time to market and time to learn is short, then you can learn. Okay. And then as a CEO, you can observe your product manager if he's making right decision. So if his assumption was thousands of users, and the outcome of that or impact of that is 1,000 users, and that was the right estimation, you can expect that another decision will be also good. But if wrong 1 time, that's okay. But many mistakes like that, something is wrong.
Yeah, so of course it's good to allow people to make mistakes, but not all the time.
Yeah. So if you are doing the same thing the same way all the time and you are expecting different results, it's not about learning.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So measuring product managers, product owners by time to market, time to learn, reducing the scope. Those are the 3 basic metrics that you should add when, for example, you hire a product owner already, by asking him how to measure the product owner's job. And by that, you can define if you hired the right person after, let's say, 3 months.
Yeah, on the strategy level, yes, because that's the strategy. We want to make right decision to deliver right thing and to create impact that we expect. Another metrics or measurement that you can try to adapt in your organization is about focus. How to measure leadership about product. So you can ask your developers if they clearly understand the strategy, if they clearly understand what for we are doing, how we want to beat the market. Because as a product manager, you make big decisions, but as a developer, you made every day thousands of small decisions that also have impact to that strategy. So they need to know what decision they need to choose. So let's guess, if they don't know how many users you expect in the end, they will produce something that may work for 10 users per hour because there was no requirements. It is not correct because you expect more. Or from another hand, they can create something that expect millions of users, and it's too big, so they create a lot of waste. So on the infrastructure, on the code, on the quality, etc. So you need to be clear on that communication with developers, communication with sales, with marketing. Everyone here on the delivery side have to be aligned, but your stakeholders, so it's again about leadership, need to be aligned.
So transparency, the way the product owner take care about the product backlog, the requirements, how they are defined, described, and then explained to everyone.
Yeah, transparency is a tool. So what I want to say, my definition of transparency is I can see what I need in that instantly to make the right decision. So transparency on the backlog level, I know what to choose for the next iteration because I know what we want to achieve. On the strategy level, I clearly see where we are, what the decisions are right now, and what to change if needed. On business level, CEO needs to see where we are with budget. So how much money we need to raise or how much money we need to spend here, because maybe we have enough money to increase spending money on sales, let's guess. So we can gain more users. So everyone should be aligned. That's why communication, transparency is a tool for communication, is super important.
Okay. So I believe that those are also topics that are very useful to be covered during the interview when you are hiring product owner, product manager. Also, one thing that you already mentioned, that reducing the scope, like the way we are trying, we are testing it during the interviews, is that we actually work with product owners, product management candidates on the real, let's say, backlog or the set of the requirements for some imaginated app. And we ask them to plan the release of this app, and they could use whatever tools and methods for product management, backlog management they know it, they can use. But at the end of the day, what we are looking for is someone who is really able to cut the scope to the minimum and then deliver something that makes sense to production by cutting the scope.
It could be, I hope not, but let's make it a bit more clear. What does it mean cutting the scope?
Mm-hmm.
Because someone can understand that we are not delivering those stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's partially true.
Mm-hmm.
But cutting the scope means that we will still delivering that feature,
mm-hmm.
but a bit smaller,
mm-hmm.
a bit less functionality.
Or later.
Mm-hmm. That's also cutting the scope. Because still, as a software company, as a software startup, you want to deliver some code,
mm-hmm.
but only the code that matters, that
mm-hmm.
users will use it, and it will change some behaviors.
I believe that answers the question, what's the greatest value of product manager? Because as everyone, I hope that everyone knows that in software development, the most costly part is software development. Like, software developers are costs. Of course, they bring some value, but they cost a lot. And if we can reduce the time of software developers needed to develop product, then we can reduce the cost in a probably the most efficient way. So this is why product management brings value to the table to startups especially, but to any company that is building software products. Good product management can reduce the cost and increase the value that is delivered at this cost.
The problem with what you said is that most of the companies doesn't measure.
Yep.
So it's possible to measure how much money you spend on delivering something and how big impact on your market share or on your clients it makes.
Mm-hmm.
And most of company doesn't compare those two values. So how with the impact, how many users we gain, and how much money we spend on developing that. Mm-hmm. That's a problem, because then you are not learning, because you spend probably too much money on something that brings no impact or too less impact. Mm-hmm. And then, because you are not measuring that as a part, you are not measuring how much time you spend on maintenance or make it work, mm-hmm. keep lights on. And maybe here you have a lot of waste.
I mean that the features, the functionalities that are not used, they still require some maintenance. Even like ridiculous things like, for example, code library need to be updated because there was some security issue and someone need to do this, and someone need to spend hours on that, and that costs.
That's one cost. It's not a big deal, or it's not as big deal as what I want to say. The biggest deal is that you have part of the functionality that only, let's guess, few % of your users are using it.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you want to deliver something more, you need to think about how to connect those to two functionalities. So let's guess you are creating calendars and you have communication tool. And that communication tool is used by 5% of your users.
I think that is also a really good metrics for the product owners who you already hired and you have in your organization, if they are removing any functionalities from the application.
Yes, that's a really good question to ask your product manager how many functionality you removed from your previous product.
From your previous product, it's a great interview question. Yeah, I should ask it.
So in that example, whenever you want to improve your calendar, so add new features, you need to think that maybe some users will try to discuss that, and you need to connect those two features. And it's hard to make right decision to avoid that discussion. That discussion is a waste, because if nobody is using that, maybe nobody will use that new features that you want to improve your core functionality. Let's guess it's calendar. And you're wasting time to discuss how it should connect. And then your developers will waste time how those things should connect.
Yeah, and it escalates pretty fast. Like you have a simple thing that needs to be discussed with many people, and each of them spend an hour. You have 10 people in a room, you have 10 hours.
Yes, that's one visualization of that escalation. But from other hand, as a CEO, probably you observe that before you need, for example, 2 weeks to deliver something, and now you need 4 weeks. What happened with your organization?
Or 2 months.
Yeah,
more often.
Yeah, so you see as a product, as a CEO, that you are going slower and slower and slower, and you don't know why. And that's why is because you didn't remove unused functionalities. So you have a lot of things that the product managers, developers need to think about, and it's not worth to think.
That's brilliant. To actually focus on also removing stuff from your existing products. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about scaling, about product management at scale. Since some of the startups who are not failing at the early stage, they are growing. And how to deal with product management when your organizations grow, when your startup is growing, when you hire more and more people. Should you hire more than one product manager, or maybe not? Maybe the one is enough. How to help such person to perform the product management? How does it work for bigger organizations?
Before we think about scaling, we need to ask ourselves if we need to scale. Because as we said before, most of the parts of the system usually are not used. So maybe if you remove that, maybe if you have less code, less maintenance, maybe better quality code, then you can deliver faster, and your current team is good enough. Or maybe I work with some kind of clients like that you have too many peoples. Because the problem with many peoples is that, or many developers, you need to deliver them a lot of scope to deliver. Maybe it's not worth.
Everyone will be busy.
Yeah. And because you are paying a lot of money for that, you want to keep them busy. So if you hire, let's guess, too many mobile developers, you want to keep them busy. And it's probably a waste, because if they develop something that is not used, someone need to review it, so it's a waste. Someone need to deliver the scope, it's a waste. Someone need to test it, it's a waste. Someone need to integrate it, measure it later on. It's a lot of work, because you have, for example, too many mobile developers.
So what you want to say is that product management is about not scaling the organization if it's not needed?
If it's not needed, yes. You need to keep as simple as it's possible. But there are some cases that you need to scale, because the complexity of the problem is so wide, or maybe the problem itself requires too many integrations or something like that. And you need to be smart here. Because if your current organization before scaling doesn't work correctly, you cannot expect that if you bring more complexity, more problems basically, it will fix magically. It will be worse, always. So before you scale, you need to clean everything to be able to scale. And then you ask another question, how many managers you need and how to scale. And I believe, and I experienced that at least 3 times with success, that less large-scale Scrum is a best way to deliver software easy and fast without adding those many steps, without increasing your time to market, without increasing your time to learn. So if you want to learn, if you want to be fast, it's, in my opinion, the most efficient way.
I think it's a good idea to do another episode about less itself. It's a great tool, and I think it will be very valuable for any startup founders who are later in their product development, already growing the organization, already grew the organization, and trying to find out why they are much slower than they used to be, despite they are spending way more money on the current software development than they used to.
It could be, but we need to start with something that is built in less in the framework, is a kind of technical excellence. Because if you scale something that is not correct, it will be worse. It will be more problems that you can imagine.
That's the same with Scrum, yeah? Less is also based on Scrum. If you have teams that are not working in Scrum, you need to start with Scrum, and then you can find a way to implement less. Otherwise, you will only ask for troubles.
Yeah, that's why I agree. It's good to record video about less, but we need to start how to avoid scaling, if it's possible. And then if technical excellence is correct, if product management is correct, then it's a place to scale.
That connects perfectly with one of our previous episodes about Scrum. Now we are talking about product management, then talking about less, which actually requires both great product management and Scrum implementation and technical excellence. So I believe that the next episode will be about the technical excellence, and then we can combine all three and talk about bringing it to scale, if needed, of course. So getting back to that, so let's say that we are already in this place that we have great product management, we are using Scrum, we have this technical excellence, and we found out that we need to grow because we need to respond to the market faster. We see new opportunities. Our domain is complex, is getting more and more complex with time. We need more people. So should we hire more than one product managers or not?
Most companies that I observe are thinking that way, that we need to deliver more in the product, we grow, we have a lot of users, so we need to deliver more in back office, so let's split here. And that's the worst case then.
So the product and the back office of the product,
yeah,
almost every product.
And it's a worst case scenario, because let's imagine like previous story about mobile developers, you have too many mobile developers, and because they are not able to deliver anything except mobile, so you start delivering things that are not used, and you spend a lot of time to integrate, test it, etc. In that case, if you split that way, in some cases you will see that you want to deliver something on the product and it's not used on the back office, so you have team that are working on something that is not important right now. So you are generating waste. And sometimes from other side, you deliver something on the product side, and you need to go here to be more focused. So deliver something on the back office, and they are waste. And it's not waste of one person. It's a waste for a whole team or many teams. It's a lot of waste,
a lot of money.
So less recommends to split it that way, that still you have one product manager, a really strong decision person that can make decision fast and be responsible on everything here. Then you have team that are able to deliver something on product, on back office, on mobile, whatever it's needed. And then because you have one product manager, one backlog, you can split that backlog through those 3 teams. Each team, let's guess 2, 3, 5, has ability to take each row from your backlog. So the most important topic always are delivering in parallel. It's not the case that you are delivering something that is not important to avoid bigger waste
So the key is like a true cross-functionality of those teams, and also like every team is able to deliver in any part of the system, which means it's you have like collective code ownership in place.
Yes, it's like a Scrum, but more difficult. And let's make clear what does it mean that collective or cross-competential. I don't want to say that every team, let's guess your organization grow, you have 8 teams. I don't want to say that every team can take everything, because then you need to learn them every domain. They need to learn every part of the system. Maybe it's too big, but some cross-functionality is needed. So like in typical Scrum, you have mobile developers, you have developers on focusing more on backend, on frontend, but still they're able to work in parallel, and they are able, let's guess, if we have not too much in our mobile side this sprint, someone will take more code review, more testing, or whatever. They are able to work together fast enough. And with the teams, if you have 8 teams, some of them are able to do something on that part, and then as a combine, you still are delivering the most important topics. So you can observe it if you have proper teams or knowledge sharing enough in your organization. If still you can come with those teams that you have, still you can row by row with that order delivering stuff. If you need to jump, something is wrong.
So actually the scaling is also all about a good product management. If you are good in product management and you have this technical excellence and the right process in place, actually you don't need more than one product manager. Maybe that's the conclusion of that.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not easy to get there, but it's definitely possible, and many companies are doing this.
It's not easy. It's required a lot of automatization. So yeah, a lot of automation in the tools that you are using. It's required a lot of, analytic skills in a team. So you push basically, if you're one product manager in bigger company, you push to the team a lot of responsibilities. So we are thinking about strategy, you are thinking about leadership, and they are delivering the right thing. You just put the directions. So I like to talk to our developers that there is only one requirement in user story, is the user story itself. Everything that I prepared more, except that sentence, the user story, is kind of suggestion. If you can imagine better solution that I prepared, please do it. The question is if we fit to user story.
Okay. So I believe we covered all of the topics that I wanted to cover today. Is there anything else we should talk about the product management? Anything in your mind?
It's wide topic, so it's hard to answer.
Yeah.
Let's stop here. Maybe next episode.
Yeah, I believe that there will be more episodes on the product management itself, on the particular parts of product management as well. And I believe that there is a lot of things that we can share as well. So thank you very much for today, and we invite you to subscribe to our channels on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course stay tuned, because soon we'll release even more episodes about product management, about how we work, and we'll share our experience from contemporary startups development. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pragmatic Talks is delivered to you by Pragmatic Coders, the first choice software development partners for startup founders. Be sure to catch all new episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast channels. And if you are thinking about building your own startup or struggling with product development, contact us and find out what we can do together.